It was a quiet Monday morning in the university. The students entered their classroom one by one, carrying books, bags, and the burden of another busy week. Some were still half asleep, while others scrolled endlessly on their phones. They weren't expecting anything unusual from their philosophy class that day. But when Professor Harris walked in, he carried something strange in his hands. It wasn't a book or a notebook. Instead, he placed a large, transparent, empty glass jar on the table. He had a box of golf balls, a bag of small pebbles, another bag filled with sand, and finally 2 cups of coffee. The students exchanged curious looks. "What is this?" they wondered silently. No one asked, but everyone was waiting. Professor Harris smiled knowingly, the kind of smile that teachers wear when they're about to share something unforgettable. He pointed to the jar. "Class," he said, "I want to show you something important today, but I need you to watch carefully." Slowly, he began to fill the empty jar with golf balls. One by one, the balls dropped inside until the jar looked nearly full. He turned to the class and asked, "Is the jar full now?" The students looked at the jar. It was packed with golf balls, hardly any space left. Almost in unison, they said, "Yes, it's full." The professor only nodded. Without saying a word, he picked up the bag of small pebbles. He poured them into the jar, and as the students watched, the pebbles rolled into the empty spaces between the golf balls. He gently shook the jar, and the pebbles settled deeper, filling even more gaps. He smiled again and asked, "Now is the jar full?" The students chuckled, realizing where this was going. "Yes, Professor, now it's full," one of them said confidently. But Professor Harris wasn't finished. Next, he lifted the bag of sand and carefully poured it into the jar. The fine grains slid between the golf balls and pebbles, occupying every tiny gap. Soon, the sand reached the rim. "Is it full now?" he asked once more. This time, most of the students laughed. They had caught on to the trick. "Yes, sir, now it's completely full." The professor raised his eyebrows. "Is it?" Then he reached under the table and brought out the 2 cups of coffee. Without hesitation, he poured both cups into the jar. The liquid seeped through the sand and settled at the very bottom. The class erupted into laughter and applause. Everyone admired the clever demonstration, but they were also curious. What does it mean? Professor Harris let the laughter settle down. He placed his hands on the desk, leaned slightly forward, and spoke in a calm but serious tone. "My dear students, this jar represents your life. The golf balls are the most important things: your family, your health, your passions, your dreams. If everything else were lost and only these remained, your life would still be full." He paused, letting his words sink in. The students leaned closer, eager to hear more. "The pebbles," he continued, "are the other important things: your job, your house, your education, your car. They matter, but they are not as essential as the golf balls." He pointed to the sand inside the jar. "And the sand is everything else, the small stuff. Social media, gossip, temporary pleasures, endless distractions. If you put the sand in first, there would be no room left for the pebbles or the golf balls." The classroom fell silent. Everyone understood the meaning now. Life was like the jar, and the way you filled it determined how meaningful it would be. Finally, one student raised his hand and asked, half jokingly, "Professor, what about the coffee?" The professor chuckled, lifting his cup as if to toast. "I'm glad you asked. The coffee is to remind you that no matter how full your life may seem, there's always room for a cup of coffee with a friend." The class burst into laughter again, but this time it was mixed with admiration. They weren't just entertained, they were enlightened. After the demonstration, the students kept thinking about the jar. Sarah, a hardworking but exhausted medical student, realized she had been filling her jar with too much sand, scrolling her phone until late at night, worrying about what others thought, chasing unnecessary stress. She promised herself to put her golf balls first, her health, and her dream of becoming a doctor. Another student, Mark, had been obsessed with money. He skipped family dinners, ignored his parents' calls, and measured life only by grades and achievements. That day, when he saw the professor's demonstration, his heart trembled. He whispered to himself, "What if I lose my golf balls while chasing the sand?" Meanwhile, Daniel, who had always been shy and uncertain about his future, realized something empowering. Even if his jar wasn't big, he still had the choice of what to put inside first. He left the class feeling stronger, knowing he could design his own priorities. The story of the jar spread across the campus. Students who were once overwhelmed by deadlines and distractions began to think differently. They studied with more focus but also made time for family, friends, and health. Professor Harris had done more than teach philosophy. He had given them a life formula. Focus on the golf balls first. Let the pebbles come next. Don't waste your jar on sand. And always leave space for coffee. Final lesson. Life will always try to distract you with sand, small worries, meaningless arguments, temporary attractions. If you fill your life with them first, you'll never have room for what truly matters. But if you start with your golf balls, your family, health, dreams, and values, then everything else will find its place. And when your jar feels full, don't forget to enjoy the little pleasures. A cup of coffee, a smile, a conversation with a loved one. Because at the end of the day, success is not about how much sand you have, but about how you chose to fill your jar.